Hi, and welcome to Watch It Played. My name is Rodney Smith, and in this video, we're going to learn the 2 to 4 player game, Purrramid, designed by Reiner Knizia and published by Lucky Duck Games, who helped sponsor this video. When Grandma adopted her 70th cat, you were sure she'd stop taking in more of those fur balls. She did not stop. Cats are everywhere, and she needs help getting them settled in for bed. If you can get them into the perfect pyramid, they might settle down enough to take a nap, and Grandma might get a break. So, join me at the table and let's learn how to play. To set up, put this double-sided board in the center of the play area with either side face up. These will give you variety when you play, but the rules are the same for both sides, and in this video, we'll use this side. If you have just 2 players, which we'll assume we have in this video, you fill these bottom 2 rows with what are known as the regular gray cat tiles. These come with different illustrations, but they all work the same way. You just put one of these tiles into each space, except for spaces with a number 10. Those you fill with 2 cat tiles. It will look something like this when you're done. In each space marked with an 8, put one of these wool tokens. In a 2-player game, you'll have leftovers because some of those value 8 spaces are covered up by the cat tiles you placed on the bottom 2 rows. So return any leftover wool tokens back to the box. Now the person who most recently pet a cat is picked as the starting player, or you can just choose someone randomly. The person furthest from them in clockwise order is now known as the last player. If we had 4 players, they would each get 18 regular cat tiles. If this was the first player, then going clockwise, the last player would be here. And they now give the first player one of their tiles. If you had 3 players, they each gain 24 tiles. And the last player would again give one of their tiles to the first player. We have 2 players, and as we know, that means some of the cat tiles begin on the board. From the ones that are left over, the first player gets 26, and the last player gets 25. No matter your player count, next to the board, also keep this supply of 12 gold cat tiles. Then, give the starting player the game's 5 dice. And that's the setup. In Purrramid, you and the other players will be rolling the dice and trying to assign your cats to the board, stacking them into a pyramid shape. If you can get all of your cats onto the board first, you win. Now the game is played over a series of turns, beginning with the starting player and going clockwise around and around the table. And on your turn, you'll begin by rolling all of the dice. From these results, you take any single die or combination of them that total a value showing in any one empty space of the board. A space is considered empty if it has no dice or cat tiles in it already. It's also still empty if it has a wool token. You then move the related die to that space. So I could move this 5 to here, or maybe instead I move this 4 and 2 to the 6th space here, or maybe I move the 4, the 2, and this 2 to the 8th space, and so on. The key is that you can only pick one space to put dice into, and we'll see why you might pick certain spaces over others in a moment. With your space chosen and dice placed into it, you now decide whether to continue or stop. For now, let's assume we continue. This means the current player picks up all the dice they haven't yet put on the board and rolls them again. Let's assume that we got these values this time. As before, we use any combination of them to make a total we can match to any unoccupied space of the board. And the space does not have to be adjacent to one that already has dice or cat tiles. For example, I could place this 2 into the space here. But let's instead say I'm going to put the 6 and this 2 into this 8 space. Each time you put dice into a space, you again decide whether to continue or stop. And let's continue again. Just remember, no matter what results you get, after each roll, you can only pick one space to move dice to, no matter how many different spaces the dice might match. I couldn't move this 6 to here and this 1 to here. So I'll just choose to move the 6 into this space. And then again, we can continue or stop. But let's stop this time. Now we move to the final step of your turn, placing cat tiles. And to perform this step, the dice you put on the board must meet the 2 placement conditions. The first condition is that all of the spaces you put dice into must be connected, meaning they must each be adjacent to at least one other space with dice in them. So far, so good. The second condition is that all of the dice must be supported. That means any of the adjacent spaces directly under them must have cat tiles already, as this space does, and or have dice under them, like this space does. The other option is that the dice be placed on the very bottom row. Remember, when you have 3 or more players, these tiles won't begin the game here. So dice and spaces on the bottom row are always considered supported because that's the floor. As long as all the dice you placed are connected to each other and they're all supported, you replace your dice with your cat tiles that will then fill those spaces. So in this case, we would fill all of these spaces. And if the space you're filling has a wool token, you collect it. And we'll see how these wool tokens are used a little later. If you had dice in a 10 value space, instead, fill that space by putting 2 of your cat tiles side by side into it like this. Later in the game, you might put dice into one of these value 12 spaces. When replacing them with tiles, you fill it with 3 of your cats stacked on top of each other like this. Either way, once you've finished placing cat tiles, your turn ends. But before moving on, let me show you examples of situations where you would not have met the conditions for placing tiles. Here we have dice that are all correctly supported, but notice they are not all connected. Remember, every space with dice must be connected to at least one other space with dice. Here's another example. This time, all of the dice are connected, but they are not all supported. This one does not have dice or a tile under it here. When you decide to stop rolling and placing dice, if you do not meet the tile placement conditions, you bust, which means your turn ends immediately and you do not place any cat tiles. I should point out, while you're rolling and placing dice, it's okay if you put dice into a space that is not supported yet. Remember, you can put your dice into any unoccupied space. But in a case like this, during this turn, as you continue to roll, you'll want to work to fill in these 2 spaces, or you'll bust. You can also bust before you even get to the tile placement step. Remember, after rolling and placing dice into a space, you can continue or stop. Now, if you stop, or you have no dice left to roll, then you would go right to the tile placement step. But if you decide to continue, and after rolling, you have no valid space to put your dice in, you also bust. Again, when you bust, your turn immediately ends and no tiles get placed. When your turn is over, either because you just finished being able to place cat tiles or you busted, you collect all 5 dice from wherever they are and pass them clockwise so the next player can begin their turn. Unless you just gained a bonus turn. If you ended your turn either by placing all the dice on the board and were able to successfully replace them with cat tiles, or you placed dice on 3 or more different levels and succeeded in replacing them with cat tiles, then in either of those cases, you start a bonus turn. This bonus turn begins right after the turn you just finished and is performed just like a regular turn, except you put one of the dice away, meaning you'll roll just 4. If you then, over the course of that bonus turn, manage to use all 4 of those dice successfully and replace them with cat tiles, or you place cat tiles on 3 different rows, you gain another bonus turn, setting one of the dice aside, so now only rolling 3 dice, and so on. In this way, you could gain several bonus turns one after the other, setting aside a die each time. When you finally stop, or bust, the next player continues with their turn, using all 5 of the dice as usual. Okay, with that understood, we should now discuss the wool tokens that you can collect from the value 8 spaces. Remember, you do not gain these simply by putting your dice into their spaces. You must be able to legitimately place your cat tiles there, and then you gain the related wool token. After rolling the dice during your turn, you can return a wool token to the box in order to re-roll all of the dice you just rolled. And that is important. You must re-roll all of the dice. You cannot save some and re-roll others. That said, you can use as many wool tokens as you like during a single turn, even re-rolling the same group of dice multiple times. With that, we now know the rules for taking a turn, and turns will continue with players rolling dice and trying to place their cat tiles until a person has put all of their regular cat tiles onto the board. That player has just won the game, but the game is not over yet. The winning player now takes all of the gold cat tiles, and they'll continue to use them. In fact, if they place their last regular cat tile during a turn, when they would still need to place more, they use these gold tiles for the rest. Turns will continue around and around the table as before, with that winning player using the gold tiles from now on, until the game ends in one of 3 possible ways. Either all the spaces on the board are filled with cat tiles, or a second player puts their final cat tile onto the board, or the winning player puts their last gold cat tile on the board. As soon as any one of those 3 situations occur, the game immediately ends, and the winner determines their final score. They do this by counting how many gold cat tiles they added to the board. In a case like this, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 points. They then compare this to the chart found here in the rulebook, which gives them their final winning title and description. Each other player scores as many negative points as the regular cat tiles they still have in front of themselves. So here, minus 7 points. Don't forget, the board is also double-sided. You might even decide in advance to play a certain number of games and total the scores between them, flipping the board over with each game to give yourself even more variety. Otherwise, that's everything you need to know to play Purrramid. If you have any questions about anything you saw here, feel free to put them in the comments below, and I'll gladly answer them as soon as I get a chance. You'll also find forums for discussion, pictures, other videos, and lots more over on the games page at Board Game Geek, and I'll put a link to that in the description below. And if you found this video helpful, please consider giving it a like, subscribing, and clicking that little bell icon so you get notification anytime we post a new video. And if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can join my Patreon team, which I'll have linked below. But until next time, thanks for watching.